Hey everybody, VP with Metaverse News 1 here, and I wanted to go over my top 6 Illuvials, personal favorites, for just the Illuvium Overworld beta. These are not what I would choose for Arena, per se, but I've noticed a big difference between how they perform there and how they perform here. So, and also I don't have them all because I don't play as much as a lot of other people do, but as far as what I do have, I just wanted to go over that as well. Now, also know I'm factoring in points as well, because however many points it cost to use one of these really factors into the overworld portion of the game. If you use too many, you won't have any points left over to catch anything. So something like a Titanor, while I'm sure is extremely important, just cost way too many points to ever really use. You're much better off using a host of smaller ones. So let's go ahead and get started. And believe it or not, these guys are hard to catch, but the shit shrimp line, Alfie, is actually pretty darn good in this game. Fires off, the attack speed's really low, I get that, but what I've noticed in some of these Scions is when you actually watch them perform, they don't really fire off that slow. They seem to get a good amount of attacks off, and they're fairly quick to get their Omegas off, which I've talked about before, is something a lot of Illuvials never get the chance to do in Overworld. That was one of my 4 things I would change about the Overworld game so far. So props to Alfie. He is pretty useful. There's a fair amount of water Illuvials in this game you can combine him with. And he's going to get my number 6 spot for right now. Now on to number 5. Let's find him. And this is an Illuvial. This is a whole line that primarily sucks in Arena, and that's going to be, I guess, the dog line, the wolf line, whatever this is. So Dash and Rake. Now I haven't got to Umbre yet, but Dash and Rake absolutely chew people up in this game. They immediately go to the back and immediately get to work, and I have knocked out Scions and Empaths in the back in a matter of seconds with these guys, and the stats back it up pretty well. Pretty strong across the board. Really strong Omega power if they ever get there. They typically don't. But part of the reason is because they do so much damage, you can win a game pretty quick if you have these people on your team. If you have Dash or Rake on your team, I can only imagine what Umbre is able to do on here. Umbre could absolutely be OP in this game. Remember this going forward. So at number 4, I'm going to give it to Singe. Singe is one of the few that's actually really strong in both games. I like people who can do a lot of damage and has a great Omega, which Singe has gotten to that Omega quite a few times when I've played him, but also can take a hit. A lot of times with fighters is they're great at fighting, but you lose them too quickly. Singe can do everything, and this is one of the main reasons why on Arena, if you have him, you almost always use him. And it's no different here. And if you could team him up with Scoriox or even a Firiox and get that double mag, that's really something right here. Double Magma is an absolute game changer, as we've seen in Arena. But this line here is every bit as advertised. And maybe if I keep playing, I'll get a Seer and we can see what that's all about. But for the price, I think Singe is a really good option, because you could even pair him with some of the smaller Fire Illuvials and get that bonus and not really notice too much of a drop-off, because he is just that powerful. All right, so on to number 3. Speaking of, totally worth the hype, totally lives up to the billing. Riplance is an absolute masher. Love him. He's another one of those people who can dish it and take it at the same time. That physical attack damage, I don't even really pay too much attention to, because when he drops that tail, it's over. And what you also get is an ability to pair with nature Illuvials and water Illuvials both. One of the big things about nature in Arena is you don't get a lot of opportunities to have somebody who can really throw a punch or take a punch. It's more about healing with nature. So it's really good to have a chance in beta to play with Illuvials in the nature line that you could actually use for some real attack power. But everything centers around Riplance. Even though he's expensive, He can just do so much. You can pair bond with the Ranger and get that double toxic, which is a killer. I mean, there's just so many things you can do that even though he's expensive for obvious reasons, he's totally worth it. At number 2, I have a couple of these. Let me see if I can find the one I use the most. That's going to be Nature Flish. Now, I want to say something about Tier 0 Illuvials. They are super useful in this game. Now, you don't get those composite synergies like, like Revenant or Colossus or Toxic or anything like that, but the lower price makes it all worth it. You can get yourself every level of Nature Flish and just use them as you want to use them because they're super, super helpful, I think. Mostly in terms of damage dealing and their ability to heal themselves. Now, again, you don't see a lot of damage dealers on the nature line, so it's good to have something like this. And the Flish line's Omega is very similar to the Shit Shrimp's line Omega, to where you get that glass cannon that can go diagonal all the way across the screen and just take out whoever's in its way. The Flish line Omega will take out a lesser Atipo, for example, in one shot. It's one shot, one kill, full power, all the way down to 0. That's how powerful that thing is. And I've often gotten 2 or 3 Illuvials, enemy Illuvials, in that line of fire. I mean, Nature Flish has not only saved me from losing a number of battles, but it has single-handedly just taken out the entire board sometimes when I need him to. And that's something you just don't see with the nature line. So it's been such a treat to have this particular Illuvial on my team and to be able to grow him into the highest version. I'm pretty much unstoppable now with Exalted Nature Flish on my side. And then my number 1, and this will probably surprise a lot of people, but it's going to be this guy here. And I've had every version of him along the way. So stay with me on this. You want, the primary purpose of a bulwark is to take up space and time. All right, is to occupy Illuvials so they don't attack your damage dealers or your healers. That's always been the main purpose of a bulwark. The problem is with the airline, you never had any type of Illuvials that could really do that up until now. And so I love the fact that even though he's not the strongest bulwark ever, I think his offense makes up for that. He has gotten his Omega off quite a bit. And as you can see, it's a pretty strong Omega for a bulwark. And here's the thing. Because he's air, they have the ability to gain dodge, which is very important because if they dodge, that renders the opponent's attack useless, which buys you even more time, which is exactly the reason you put a bulwark on the board in the first place. So you put the bulwark on the board to buy yourself time. Air bulwarks buy you even more time than you would normally have because of that dodge ability. And so I think that's really great. I try to use this Illuvial almost every time. And because of his cost and overall usefulness, Exalted Air Graco, and really the whole Air Graco line, is my number 1 favorite Illuvial in this game. Do you guys have a top 6? Put it down below. I want to see it. Do you have any Illuvials that agree with mine? And what are your reasons? Let me know down below as well. And stay tuned tomorrow for an Illuvium 0 video, the eve of the day where it actually comes out. Things are about to get good, everybody. I'll see you down the road.